get home from the trip, you immediately
No.
like open up and unpack.
I wish I
and
was
then-
that person.
Yeah, I'm definitely not. How about you?
No. I mean, kind of, but no.
Like halfway.
When we come in the door, our utility room is just to the
Yeah.
left, kind of past our entry. And so that is the rule. Suitcases do not go past that place without getting emptied and then close sorted. But
Yeah.
then everything else, it seems like it.
Yeah, Megan and I, it's this pretty contentious thing because she's pretty like, yeah, she like empties it out immediately. For me, it's like it'll be a month later and I still have stuff still in the suitcase
Yeah.
that I haven't taken
Aaron
out.
and I are
from
both
things,
like
so,
that, which is the problem. Is both of us are like,
Yeah.
our suitcase is still full from 2 months ago. Just open it. What do I need in there?
Yeah.
It's not good.
Well, that's what I do. Like, as I need stuff, I take it back out of there and it comes back out. I mean, obviously the clothes, but then there's other things like,
Are
you know,
you
toiletries or
like the four
medicine
colors?
or
Like the red, blue, yellow, green.
Yeah.
We have no blue.
No blue in your house?
Between us.
Oh, just between the two of you.
Yeah, no, none. So
luckily Megan's very blue.
right, it would
Oh,
be
yeah,
good.
She is super blue.
Lists and
It's good.
super. What I say is like she's one of the most productive people I've ever met.
Yeah.
Just because she can get through the list. So like, I'm like, how did you do that so fast?
It's on the list.
Yeah. For me, it takes forever.
She's like, because I'm disciplined and I
Yeah,
just did it.
exactly,
She's like, why
yeah.
did you not?
yeah. It's because me, I'll start with this and then I forget
I'm
this and
thinking
I
about
do that.
my suitcase
It's
I haven't
like,
unpacked yet.
Yeah.
It's like when she's out of town, I don't realize why does it take me so long to get the house like clean and ready again for when your spouse comes back. It's
Yeah.
like doing all the dishes, vacuuming.
Yeah.
And it's like
It's a good practice.
this is taking me forever. Like it takes all day. So it's because I'm not disciplined. It's like start one thing, squirrel this, side quest, project that,
Yeah.
Okay.
You're doing great.
Thanks.
We're all doing great.
We're all, everything's perfect.
Yeah. I can't help.
Hey,
like,
we're
I don't
doing
know, can-
better than Gideon and Samson,
Oh, jeez.
maybe.
The
Get
low
into
bar. We're not murdering people, so
That's right. That's my segue.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's hop in this week.
Judges 12 to 17.
Yeah. It's basically Samson. It's all Samson this
Yeah.
week.
We're in
Samson.
we're in this spiral of
Death spiral.
a doom spiral. Each judge, their character and the moral fabric of who they are is spiraling, circling the drain. It gets worse and worse with each one. And we get to Samson, who on Sunday school felt boards everywhere in the 80s and 90s, he was the hero.
He's a hero. He's
a
really,
hero.
it sounds
Yeah.
like he's a Greek hero,
Yeah.
Big
and strong and locks of hair.
with tragedy at the end.
I don't remember that. I don't have that
Because
as
of
my
his
context. I just, maybe I
don't?
was exposed to that. I just don't remember that. And so reading through the story, I mean, I've read pieces of it, but not the whole
It's an
thing.
exciting story, and he is this super strong, deliverer. So it has all the elements of a really good heroic story. It's just that at the end of the day, he's not quite the hero.
Yeah. But none of these people are ever really the hero.
That's right.
But yeah, I can see how people could twist, like we learned about Gideon, how people can manipulate
Yep.
these words to serve, I don't know, say selfish purpose, but maybe a
just
misaligned.
sort of lose the bigger point of the story, which
Yeah.
is that in these days there was no king and everyone did what was right in his own eyes. I mean, that's the point, and so that has to be our context,
Yeah.
even though it's an exciting, cool story.
Yeah. Well, because it also like has these weird mirrorings of other stories that we know, like made me think obviously at the beginning, like Elizabeth, this barren woman, and this angel of the Lord appears to her, and it doesn't necessarily say she's old, but
But she's barren
yeah,
for whatever reason.
Yeah. She's been trying to have kids.
for whatever long. I guess
Yep.
you probably have to have
And then she
not be
dedicates him.
successful for a long enough time for them to
Yeah.
Yep.
classify you as that. So yeah, I mean, I think that it starts that way. You hear these familiar things. So I guess I'm affirming. I can see how people take it there. I think one of the things that's interesting is like initially, that he was called, like it says here at the beginning of 13. Where is this? Verse 5, at the end of 5, he shall begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. So, like, he's called to be set apart as this Nazarene for, like, a specific purpose. And ultimately, like, later on, you forget about that when it's like, oh, man, this seems bad. It's like, but this is kind of like he was set apart to help start that process, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like both. So you see, I mean, this is what he set apart to do, which is he's not supposed to touch a corpse, any dead carcass.
Anything dead.
Yes. He's not supposed to drink wine.
Yeah.
And he's not supposed to cut his hair.
Yeah.
And you sort of see throughout his entire story, he does all those things.
Oh, yeah, no.
And it ends with the most obvious one, which is cutting his hair. But I mean, he's not really adhering to what he's set apart for the entire time. His vocation, really.
Yeah, and that's what makes you wonder, like, as you're reading a lot of these chapters, is God in his sovereignty, still using Samson for his purposes, even though Samson's clearly doing it his own way. I mean, pretty soon off the bat, he's touching a dead carcass and he's drinking.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's already, that vow of being a Nazarite.
Yes, let's rewind a little bit and just
Okay.
talk about what the Nazarite vow is. It's because you can read that and like, okay, well, why did he take this vow? Why was he not cutting his hair and alcohol and all that? So if you go back to Numbers chapter 6, that is the framework for the Nazarite vow. And it is a way for any Israelite, man or woman, to set themselves apart like the high priest was set apart. So remember, they have the tabernacle and they have the Levitical priests, and then there's the high priest. And the high priest is the one who at any moment has to be ready to go into the holy place. And he couldn't touch dead bodies or consume alcohol. And the consumption of alcohol actually goes back to like Noah, if you remember, after the ark.
Yeah.
He gets drunk from his own wine. And then later, when they do build the tabernacle, you have Moses and his brother Aaron and Aaron's 2 sons. We didn't read this part, but they go into the into the tabernacle, and it says they bring strange fire, and God responds by striking them dead and burning them because they come into the holy place in a way that was that they weren't supposed to. And later, God says, no drinking on the job.
Oh, so they were probably drunk.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're led as the reader to understand, oh, they were drinking, and decide, let's go in where Dad
Yeah.
leads in the holy place. So that became a rule for the high priest. They couldn't drink. They couldn't touch a dead body. And the reason for that has to do with really the laws around holiness and the ritual conduct around holiness always was about life and death. That's why bodily fluids were part of it. Like the tabernacle was the place of pure life, God's presence. Anyway, the Nazarite vow was a way for any Israelite, man or woman, to say, I'm going to, for a period of time, set myself apart and dedicate this period to God. And it was a choice a person could make, and it was really a limited period of time. But what we see for Samson is he didn't make that choice. It was told to him by his parents, this is what you're going to do. And it was for his whole life. So it's kind of a distinction for Samson.
Yeah, I mean, and then because the angel of the Lord said,
The angel of the Lord said to do that.
He
That's right.
didn't have initial choice in that, but he probably knew this was what, like the parents probably said, listen, like I was barren, like he knew
for
the
sure.
story.
He knew, yeah.
No
And he
doubt.
also was utilizing his gifting and vocation. I mean, you see him trying to live into it, but you also see him trying to do it like we've seen, like you said, in lots of stories, in his own way.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it on my own. I'm not really going to care about the fact that I'm supposed to be Yahweh's vessel. So I'm set apart and just doing this through his power. He forgets that over and over.
Yeah, and I throughout this, the phrase kept repeating. That's one of the things I was looking up. This idea of like Samson went down, then Samson went down, and his father went down. Like all those things about later he went down a bunch of times, and just wondering like, okay, is there something there to that, and what does that mean? And obviously, it probably had to do with like geographically speaking, from wherever he was living and where
Yeah.
the Philistines were, but also spiritually, like the implications of when he goes down, he's going down and probably doing stuff. I mean, that's when he like is all, hey, I see this woman and man, she's right in my eyes. Like I want her as my wife.
Right.
And
Yeah,
it
he
went
saw and
down.
he
I'm
took, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, there was that whole thing as I was reading this too.
Yeah, I think that's really great. I think that there's all sorts of parallels in these stories that we're seeing over and over, which is good for us to understand, even in the context of, okay, how is this, like you're saying, how is this, he's obviously doing these things that are bad, but God is using him for his purposes. But that's not new.
Yeah.
These stories are worse and they get worse, but it's not, that's not new.
Yeah.
God has over and over used people, partnered with people, even who were very, very flawed, and even who meant evil. Like he told Joseph, or what Joseph told his brothers, what you meant for evil, God used for good. And we say that over and over. And that's, I think, what's happening throughout this story too.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Is it worth like breaking down like some of the pieces? I just don't know what's helpful. Like as I went through it, again, it seems pretty straightforward. I don't know if there's a lot of like, I don't want to say like the hidden meanings in some of the stuff. I mean, again, for me, it was crazy how quickly he, touches the dead and the lion.
I mean, he picks out a foreign wife for
Yeah.
himself, which we should already sort of know that's not.
Yeah,
It's a major
that's not
red
where it's
flag.
It's a
Yeah.
major red flag.
And-
we should immediately see that.
And even when it said, where did it say? In verse 14:4, his father and mother did not know that it was from the Lord, for he was seeking an opportunity against the Philistines with regard to the wife. So
Yeah.
there's kind of this weird, like, hey, that doesn't seem right, but now
God's
it's
gonna
saying
use
the
it.
Lord is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God
This is
knows
from God. Yeah.
who Samson is,
Yeah.
and he's going to use Samson's strength and his weaknesses to deliver his people.
Yeah. And even some of the later on, just about like touching dead, like it talked about like his strength and he struck him down with like his hip and thigh, great elbow, like probably like hand to hand combat, like literally like
Yeah.
when he's killing people, he's like touching. So he's far like, dude, that vow's long gone, bro.
Yeah. There's a lot of just cultural context here, and I don't think it all matters necessarily for our theology or for the story, but just when we're reading through stuff and stuff seems random, like why locks of hair, but hair was considered the glory of both man and woman back then, and also there's lots of depictions of heroes who had these 6 or 7 locks of hair. And so there's all these details that seem weird. That's
Yeah.
just cultural context. If you're reading it at this time, this guy is like a different kind of guy. He's like Hercules.
Yeah.
That's what this story really is. Except for, like most stories that are similar to other ancient Near East stories, the hero is actually not this guy.
Yeah.
It's going to be Yahweh in the end,
Yep.
which is different than all the other stories.
Yeah. I mean, there's the whole like the weird, the riddle thing. That was kind of a weird.
Yep.
Yeah. I just found that strange. I don't know why.
I was just going to say, the riddle, is interesting, but that a woman gets it out of him
Yeah.
and then spoils it. It's like, come on. I don't know.
Also, this already happened, and then you see it happen again.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
To his ultimate destruction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, Samson, come
Yeah.
on. And you've actually seen this in all the other stories with our heroes in the Bible. It's like they do the same thing over. You see their character flaw. You see what's hard for them, and God's still using them despite of it. But you're like, oh, Samson, you did know. This wasn't like a one-off thing.
Yeah. But it did make me think like, oh, there is some truth that like if you've ever like had somebody like do a riddle and you can't figure it out, it drives you nuts. And you're like, oh, just tell me, like, give me a hint or give me like, we gotta know and how long it lasts. Of
Yeah.
like the people really wanting to like get the riddle. It'll drive you to do crazy things like enlist this woman to like, hey, get it out of them so that
Yeah, and it's about wealth and money too. Whoever, if they got the riddle, then either he owed them a lot
Yeah.
of money, basically, or they owed him a lot of money. So there was a lot at stake too. Not what's
Yeah.
at stake later, but there was still a lot at stake. Which is why then he gets so furious and he just leaves.
Yeah. But the Spirit of the Lord comes upon him and he goes down and he strikes down 30 men and takes the stuff.
Yeah, he just takes it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to wonder what that was like. He's like, whoa, what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not really.
But then right after that, this is kind of sets in motion some crazy stuff with his wife being given because he left. I guess they like gave his wife to
To someone else.
and
Which is not an unusual practice.
Yeah.
Because he obviously left very angry
Yep.
and the marriage wasn't consummated. And so, you know, he was mad about it when he came back and he thought that she was his wife, but they might have thought that's over.
yeah, and so then he comes back to try and reconcile with his wife, and it's like, what the heck? And that's when he starts burning things down with Fox. I mean, it's a weird,
It's a wild
story.
tale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think. Again, we get more of this. Like he comes down, and then he's hiding. That's another one. Like he after he burns he burns a bunch of their stuff. Then they burn his wife and
Yeah, she
her
dies.
father.
Which this is not, again, Judges is not a, like, Deborah aside, this is not a great book for women.
No.
They tend to be on the victim side of things.
Yes.
That one lady that threw the millstone.
You're right. There are a couple heroines
Yeah.
in Judges.
Yeah, but they don't get a lot of.
They don't get a
lot of play. They
right.
don't get a lot of.
But there are some very, very hard things to read that it's real. I mean, we've said this over and over. When there's idolatry, when there's sin, people are harmed. There's violence and there's destruction, and you do see it in a lot of these chapters with women.
Because they were. I mean, that's because contextually, like they were the marginalized. They were the few, and so like even today, as whatever. I'm not saying it doesn't or it doesn't happen today or it is happening today, but I think marginalized people are generally always
Going to be
on the short end
victims
of the
of
stick.
power
Yeah.
politics.
Yeah.
I do think that's good when you're in a position of power. Then if you aren't honoring that power and glorifying God and seeking to love people in humility, then the people who don't have any power are harmed first.
Yeah.
Whenever we aren't faithful, everyone around us is affected. And I think you're right. It's going to be those who are marginalized first.
Yeah.
And it matters. And I do think it happens today all the time.
I mean, I think that the next scene, just trying to keep us moving along here, as I read it, I went back and reread it again because I was like, dude, that would make such a great movie scene.
Yeah.
This guy with a jawbone of an animal,
Donkey.
like 1,000 men.
Yeah.
And I know that's maybe figurative. It's not maybe literally 1,000. It could be, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a lot of hyperbole
You
in
just
any of the
see
battle
like
scenes.
a bone of an animal, like
what's
and
around,
what's
yeah.
around,
Yeah.
and then
That's how strong he is.
yeah. So anyway, it's just kind of like, oh, yeah, I could picture that. Be a good movie.
Yep. So then Delilah.
Yep. Then we get here to Delilah, which again is
After a prostitute.
yeah
Right.
after
There's a prostitute and there's Delilah. So there's also this pattern of he does seem to just like see and take.
yeah
He seems to be that kind of person
yeah not
because that's not in there randomly. He spent a night there. He almost was trapped, but because he's so strong, he was able to get out of it. But there is a pattern of him seeing a woman that he wants and that is maybe going to cause his destruction, but he's able to be rescued out of that. But then in this final chapter with Delilah, we see it doesn't work out.
yeah definitely doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's this weird, like, is he getting the repetition of like it's happening over and over? It's like, dude, do you not see?
Yeah.
Like, are you getting cocky? Are you oblivious? Are you just so like
All of those
enthralled? Like, what's that play there? Either way, he's distracted from. I mean, yeah,
Because he said he loved a woman, so he saw a woman that he loved, and they said seduce him. So she came into the relationship with the intent to seduce him and get this information from him to his destruction.
yeah. Because ultimately, by this point, I mean, he's killed a bunch of Philistine. All these are all Philistine women that he's attracted to, and they're trying to use use her to be like, hey, we got to get rid of this guy who's
Yeah.
clearly at odds against
Yep.
against us.
Oh yeah, he just killed thousands of people with the jaw
Yeah.
of a donkey. Yeah. So she tries 3 times, and he sort of is playing with her and lying to her.
Yeah.
But then eventually, she says, "Hey, you don't really love me unless you tell me." And eventually, he does.
Yeah. And especially after, like, he knew what she was doing, the way it reads, he knew that there were people hiding in the room, kind of waiting for, and then he was able to break free, or maybe he didn't know, and I just read it wrong. But do you
Well,
know
she
what I'm
says
saying?
the Philistines are coming, but
Yeah.
we don't really know how long this all
Okay.
took, and if she was sort of joking with him. But you know, I mean, who knows
Yeah.
how he was deceived? But he definitely was, or he's just a very, very unwise leader,
Yeah.
or both.
Maybe it's both and. So then, obviously, since his that was like the final vow
Yeah.
of, you know,
The most visible vow,
Yeah.
that he had.
and so everyone wanted to believe like, oh, it was his hair that gave him all this power. I don't.
It was his devotion to Yahweh,
Yeah.
and
It was the
and
initial
that's
vow
how
in the
flippant he
call.
was with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So it wasn't that because he cut his hair, he lost all his power. Because the hair was giving him his power. That's bad felt board stories here.
Right. It's not the hair, it's the Spirit of God.
Yeah.
Connected to this Nazarite vow, this being set apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's captured. They gouge his eyes out. They put him in chains. Was it bronze, like handcuffs or whatever, that he can't break? And they make him work the millstone because he's big and strong.
And it's woman's work. They're like, you're gonna start doing dishes. That's what you're doing.
Yeah. Which would be hard to do if you're blind. The dishes.
Maybe not.
Maybe not the millstone, but I was thinking, like, did I get all
Yes,
of
and all of this
spaghetti
is
out?
again. There's cultural context to almost every sentence in this, which you could just work through. But I don't know how much of it matters. But none of it's as weird and random as it seems.
Yeah.
But I mean, gouging out the eyes of an enemy that you've conquered was very common because it's humiliating, and it's
Yeah.
considered humiliating. And so they did that. They made him do the work of a woman. I mean, all these things are like, you were this deliverer, this hero, and now you can't even see, and you're just going to grind milk. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
They even bring him out at a party
Yeah.
so everyone can laugh at him. Like,
Yep.
So he can amuse us.
That's right.
Like, go get him. This will be funny.
This will be
Yes.
funny, guys. They're all having a good time, and they're
Yeah.
going to bring this guy out in chains who doesn't have any eyes and can't stumbling around. And
So what do you guys make of that at the end there? Just kind of like he calls out. I mean, obviously it's going to be to his own destruction.
yeah,
I think he's come to a place where he's been forced to be humble. And so he does want vengeance, that's clear, but he cries out
Yeah.
to Yahweh in this moment. And it's only really in his humility when he gets to, okay, I'm actually going to accomplish my vocation, which was to defeat the Philistines. And it only happens in that moment.
Yeah, and I think the thing that was just interesting was, in previous times when Samson did like these crazy feats, it was like he was filled with the Spirit of the Lord. Here it says he cried out, but then it says then he bowed with all his strength. And so it wasn't necessarily like, oh, the God, the Spirit of the Lord then came upon, like God heard his cry and the Spirit of the Lord came upon him and gave him the strength to do this again. I don't know. What do you make of that?
He did pray. I mean, that's really, to me, what was the most important part of that is that this is one of the first times when you see him ask for the help of Yahweh. Yahweh, come and do this. And then it does happen. So my assumption is that it's Yahweh.
It's still God gave him the
That's
strength.
Right. That's right.
Okay. I don't know. It's just interesting.
I don't know.
I don't know either, but it's a good, I mean, I think too also, even if you're thinking about spiritual gifts now, this is a totally separate conversation, but usually God's Spirit empowers us where he's already created us
Yes.
to
Yeah.
for his purposes, for his kingdom, in order to serve his purposes and love people well. And so it's sort of always this fuzzy line between like, well, God gifted you in that way, and then God empowers you to live that out. And it's the same here in a different way, but he was strong.
Yes.
He was, he was humbled, but he was still strong. But he cries out to Yahweh in that moment, which is, if we're going to talk about Hebrews, how he's a part of the heroes of the faith, and you're going, this guy is not that great. But he does have these moments whenever he does entrust himself to Yahweh. And then Yahweh uses him for his purposes. And that's the whole point of that.
And ultimately, in this moment, he kills more Philistines than he had in his entire life.
Yeah.
So it's still accomplishing. He was set apart to begin the process of. What did it say?
And again, it's
back in
different
12?
than
How's that
other
word?
stories in the ancient Near East culture. It wasn't really because of him and how awesome he was. It was ultimately because of Yahweh. Yahweh made this happen. So it's a similar story that you're going to read in all these cultures, but flipped,
Yeah.
which is what we see all the time.
Okay, so we conclude this week here in chapter 17 with a kind of a weird, I don't want to say interruption, but I don't know, it just seems weird. The whole, the son stealing this stuff from his mother and then like giving it back, and she's like, oh, cool, yeah, you did have it. Well, let's offer it to the Lord, and now let's make some idols out of it. And
Yes.
let's make an altar and an
It's-
ephod. Let's like
Yeah.
create our whole little thing in our house.
We have our own little temple and priesthood in our
Yeah.
house. So Micah
Yeah.
means who is like Yahweh, and the answer is no one.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, maybe no. It's actually still not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get to the end. Rachel mentioned it earlier, but when I was in 17, knowing it's ending, verse 6, in those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. And that is repeated.
Yeah, the rest of the
Like,
way out here.
This phrase is setting us up for something. To feel like, oh, the need for a real leader that will unify the people, that will submit to Yahweh and help the people submit to Yahweh and live his way. And like, they don't have a real leader that's doing
Yeah.
that. And so it is creating a need. The author puts that in there intentionally. And so I was just wondering, like, all right, we're in this place in Scripture where when I'm reading through, it starts to feel like I'm just trudging along, because these stories are not the same way as if you were to read the Psalms or part of the New Testament or Gospels, where it's easier for me to just, I don't know, for my heart to hear the voice of God, to be inspired for the day or whatever it is I need out of Scripture that day. But when I'm trudging through Judges, for example, I have to be really intentional to ask myself, okay, why does this matter? What is the purpose of me reading this? And we've sent out the 4 questions that I use when I read the Scriptures. Where am I? That's context. How does all this point to Jesus? How should I live differently? And how does this help me reach my top 5? This week I kept thinking, all right, we believe that all of the Bible points to Jesus in some way. This is a good moment to stop and reflect on that. All right, how does this get us to Jesus? Or why does this some way, how is it about him or point to him?
Yeah, next week too.
Next week too.
And I'll tell you one thing I was thinking, just thinking about the biblical story, like where we've come from, just remembering who God created his people to be. And then we've seen, how it keeps not working out, and we're in a low place right now. And I was thinking, we sort of like just pass over the Noahic covenant, the covenant that God made with Noah. And you're like, oh, he destroyed the world because it was so evil, which is a lot, but also it was that evil. But then he promises, I will never do this again. When I'm reading through these stories, I'm thinking, whew, Yahweh, just get rid of these people. Mm-hmm. I mean, if it's not idolatry, it's harming other people. I mean, it is so bad. But we remember, he made a covenant. I will never do this again. Despite your unfaithfulness, I am going to be faithful to humanity, to people. I'm going to redeem all of humanity. I just keep thinking that. Just even though these stories they're outside of our context, we still know humans can be just so bad. But he's promised, I will never, ever destroy you like I did. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I've felt this whole time through Judges, and even still in this story, that I've been shocked how much it still feels like, dude, this is us today. This isn't just something that happened that like, oh, good thing we don't have to have it be like that anymore. But the reality is, it still is like that today. It's just masked and disguised as it's different, but it's the same. And so,
And why doesn't God get rid of evil? I mean, this is one of those big questions. It's because to do that, he would have to destroy the whole world. He
yeah.
would have to do it.
Yeah.
Because there is none who is good.
Yep.
There's none who seeks God, not one. And you see that in here, but we should feel that. We should just let ourselves acknowledge the truth of that. And then we can receive the mercy of who God really is and his story.
You can subscribe to receive additional resources to help you study the story of Scripture at clearcreekresources.org. We'll see you next week.